Hi everyone, this is Christy Kruger, anchor and health reporter right here at WPLG TV in South Florida, and you're watching the NAB show live.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. Here's your host, Janet West.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, come on in, come and take a seat. I'm Janet West, and on behalf of Broadcast Beat, I want to welcome you to the show on virtual and augmented reality. Now, I've been in broadcasting a lot, but this field is new to me, so I'm going to attempt to get my guests to help me understand a little bit about the interesting world of VR and AR. I'd like to start by introducing my guests. Raul Tiku, who is, have I pronounced that right, Raul?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. Director, General Manager of Precision Workstation Products at Dell. And Nick Hatch, who is CEO of NICAM. Raul, leader and record of Nick is Chief Executive Officer, and after having had a BSc in engineering design, he joined the Mill in 1999 as a computer graphics artist. And after setting up an in-house Previs department for Warner Brothers and Industrial Light and Magic for the second Harry Potter. Hey, great films. Nick joined the moving picture company in London before leaving in 2004 to form Envisage. Nick spent the following 8 years helping to raise the standards of Previs, and he's worked on shows like Dark Knight, Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And Raul, who is with Dell. How long have you been with Dell, Raul?
I've been with Dell about 3 years now.
Okay, now hey, we're live show. Can we have the information on Raul, please? Well, you tell us, Raul.
You want me to introduce myself?
Introduce yourself. It's sort of
all right.
crazy.
I lead the workstation business at Dell. I've been at Dell about 3 years, in the industry about 15. And workstations are sort of the heart and soul of what makes a lot of the creation of these experiences, whether it's broadcast, film, entertainment possible. So I'm really excited to be here. Get to talk to you, get to see the demos at the expo hall. It'll be pretty interesting.
There's an amazing amount of VR and AR at the show this year. This is crazy.
Everywhere you go, there's lots of AR, VR.
Yeah, VR, AR is blowing up right now, and consumers are poised to ride the wave. And that's with gaming and entertaining experience. But what about the solutions that are driving the creation?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look at virtual reality experiences today, everyone likes to talk about entertainment and they like to talk about the consumption of the experience. But really the way Dell is thinking about virtual reality, it's really a three-pronged strategy, and that applies to augmented reality too. Mm-hmm. There is obviously the creation aspect, which is where precision and the workstations play a big part, but there is the serving, cloud-based serving. We were talking about live streaming here previously, being able to stream virtual reality experiences, so Dell PowerEdge plays a part in that. And then finally, consumption is as important as the creation and serving part, and we have Alienware and XPS solutions that play a part in consumption of the VR and AR content. So really, it's a three-pronged strategy.
Okay. Dell, are you leading what sort of VR-ready configurations for other manufacturers and consumers and creators alike?
Yeah, it's when we looked at the market, VR is not new to Dell. We've been in virtual reality for decades. In fact, it's not new to the industry. If you think about video caves, we've had video caves where if you had to consume large data sets, whether it was scientific data, oil and gas, even entertainment, you had big screens, right? That was an early form of immersive content consumption or virtual reality. Also, military defense applications. We've had virtual reality in flight simulators, those kinds of applications for a very long time. What's really changed over the last a year, 2 years or so, maybe 3, is technology has really democratized. It's become much cheaper with the invention of the headsets, with the content that is being created for virtual reality. It's become much cheaper to be able to have virtual reality experiences. So with that, Dell actually announced virtual reality consumer solutions with Alienware and XPS earlier this year at CES, at the Consumer Electronics Show. But at the end of South by Southwest, which is a festival, sort of a technology, movie, music festival in Austin. We come from Austin. Dell is an Austin-based company. We also announced creative solutions, or solutions for the creators, and we're calling those VR-ready workstations. And so we have a bunch of solutions around in the tower space with Maxwell graphics from NVIDIA, GTX Pro graphics from NVIDIA, and then graphic solutions from AMD, Broadwell CPUs from Intel. And we did a bunch of work with Autodesk, Adobe, Dassault, HTC Vive, and Oculus to go test the entire solution set and bring it to market.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Nick, because this feels very new to me. I think it's new to a lot of people. Can you explain what is the clear difference between augmented reality and virtual reality?
That's a very good question. I think there is not one answer for that. I think typically, certainly from my perspective, augmented or virtual reality is all about completely immersive, 100% pre-captured, whether it's video which has been recorded before 360, or whether it's 100% CG. That's really virtual reality. Whereas augmented reality is really a mix of live feed or live action with computer-generated graphics or something else. Right. So it's a mix of the two.
Okay, so we've now got mobile devices and viewing personal solitary activity. And I'm sure any parent who's got, children have iPads and iPhones, they're sort of, wanting them to be participating in the family, but are not. And so we've seen social implications with that. Do you think that VR with headsets is going to further isolate, particularly younger people?
It's a funny question. I always use the analogy, I have a preteen girl at home and I have a 5-year-old, and they do not do anything but use the phone and the iPad and some other form of device at home all the time. Yeah, right. Even a discussion. Yeah. I mean, even if you have to invite our daughter over for dinner from her room, we have to text her. So texting is the new norm. So I wouldn't say virtual reality is going to make it any worse or better, right? I think if you think about the third wave of computing, it's all about highly immersive, highly social, shared anticipatory experiences. And virtual reality fits into that. So it's one step in that direction. But there's so many other technologies that are enabling that vision, right, of being immersed in your content. I think once we can all share that experience, even if we've got headsets on, if we're talking to each other, we can see each other, we can interact. I think that may well become the norm for some people. But yeah, you're right. I completely agree with that.
So where are the markets for augmented reality?
For
augmented reality?
I think the markets are absolutely enormous. The potential, for sure, and certainly on consumer level. I mean, as NCAM really looks at the professional markets, as we term it, or professional level augmented reality. So more in terms of live broadcast, putting graphics in place, but ultimately it's all about sharing that data across platforms, and so ultimately that's where it's going to go. So you may be watching a football game on through a regular TV. You may be watching it on your mobile device. You may be watching it on a headset, but effectively all that data can be shared around, and we can all experience the same thing.
So how's it going to make the consumer feel when they're watching a football game?
For augmented reality?
Yeah.
I think we're just starting on this. I think we're just starting on the augmented reality. I think I appreciate it's been around for a while, but I think it's becoming much easier to do. I think the quality of augmented reality is where it needs to go. I think we need to start looking for true photorealism in digital product placement or whatever it might be. And in order to do that, we need to do, we call it certain foundations of augmented reality, which is effectively tracking any camera. It's then gathering the light information around us to reuse that for relighting purposes in the CG engine. And then depth. Depth is going to be a really really important factor of this.
Okay.
And you know, something to add on the augmented reality front. I think augmented reality is going to become critical in the commercial space, right? So obviously in the consumer space where you're consuming the content, being really immersed in your content, so having really good quality content that you can get immersed in is critical. But when you think about real work is more than just consuming the content. You want to be able to manipulate the content. You want to be able to do something with the information that you're looking at. And so augmented reality in the next 18 to 24 months, as it becomes more commonplace, we have the right headsets in place, we have the right content in place, will become a pretty big part of how work gets done, right?
Yeah, and it's about understanding space, and manipulating virtual objects in real space.
So do the creatives, like the camera operators, have to have a different training to be able to shoot for VR?
I don't think, from a camera perspective, you know, the idea is really, I mean, we're doing work on children's TV shows and TV episodic, and the idea is really to shoot everything through the lens like you used to do. It's just that it's a mixture of CG and real, and the fact is you won't be able to tell the difference in real time. That's the idea.
Yeah, and you brought up something about photorealistic images. At the moment, what's good, what's bad? Where are we seeing that they need improvements?
I think, yeah. I mean, you know, graphics is there's certainly a convergence from the different tech worlds, from film, from games, from broadcast. I think we're seeing that convergence now. There's some amazing technology coming from various large companies that will be then integrated into broadcast engines to make things look more real, to support real-time relighting. There's a lot of work going on there. So I think ultimately that's what it's about. It's about, you know, for virtual sets, whether it's broadcast, whether it's episodic TV, whether it's film, we really want to be seeing and believing that, and that suspension of disbelief for the viewer. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
You know, I was talking to one of the film editors, you know, at one of these events, and you know, how much is too much in realism, right? And I think if you talk to a creator, they have an insatiable appetite right now for computing, and it's not about getting their stuff done faster. It's no longer about that. It's about iterating and iterating and iterating through whatever they're working on and making it really, really hyper-realistic, right? And so, I mean, if you just look in the last 10 years, and even the movies that we watch with our kids in theaters, you know, it's hard to tell what's real and not these days, right? And so that insatiable appetite is what we're counting on as an industry, right? That we're going to have, I mean, if we think we have good content today, wait 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And we will be looking back 10 years and say, wow, we used to watch that. Right?
I think less than 10 years. Yeah. I'm retiring.
Really?
I'm retiring in 5.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, you know, there's so much content out there now. The creatives have got to have some new tools to get an edge to be able to, you know, increase their market share whenever they are. Broadcasters have used VR for a while in weather and in news. Is there going to be a dramatic cost implication to start putting, you know, having VR in dramas and other areas?
I think what we're talking about here is typically today, a post-production technique.
Right.
What we're talking about now is moving that into the production aspect of movie making, TV making, right?
Yeah.
So the heavy lifting still needs to be done at some point. It's just you're going to do it before you shoot or film rather than afterwards. And the idea being that you get the control, the filmmakers or the TV makers, they get back the control that they've effectively lost, and so it's not a post-production technique anymore. They see it whilst they're shooting and making decisions when everyone's in the right place to make them, not afterwards 6 months down the line.
Yeah. Do you agree, Raul?
Yeah, I do, and you know, I also think that the cost of technology itself, right? So not the cost of the entire process, but the cost of technology itself. I mean, if you think about the hardware and software, it's really peanuts in the creative space, right? Somebody who's making a $200 million, $300 million movie, spending a few $100,000 on the technology aspect of the hardware, the software, that's not the big issue, right? I mean, it's how do I secure the content that I'm creating? How do I create it such that it's hyper real? How do I create it within the timeline that I have, right? I mean, those are the bigger concerns creators have. And then being able to create content as the new consumers want to consume it, you know, in this 360 immersive kind of way. I think that's where they're focused. The technology itself is really enabling that. It's getting cheaper and less of an issue, right? Because this insatiable amount of technology that our creators need, we're able to satisfy that so far.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the content tools need to be better and better and easier to use, and they are getting there, no doubt.
Now, Raoul says 10 years. Nick, you say less. Is VR or AR going to be the next platform for broadcast, or both?
So it's an either or, is it? No,
I'm
don't buy the either or. I think I buy the both. I think there's definitely space for both, and you know, like I said earlier, I think you can watch a game on a TV, or you can watch a game, you know, on your mobile. You can watch it on your headset. I think. And there'll be different experiences, and you know the content can go to all of those things. I mean, ultimately, you know, the user wants to be immersed completely and in charge of that content, in that graphics content, and that's what we'll see.
I'm hearing from both of you that the user wants. Is it the consumers that want this, or is it the industry that's driving for a new market?
I can tell you that we wouldn't be driving a new market if there was no demand for a new market, right? Yeah. And but in the end, we've seen lots of new markets created over the last 2 decades or 3 decades, right? I mean,
like
we've
3D.
had 3D technology, right, is a great example.
Yeah.
So I think the key here, and the reason we're saying users and consumers, the key here is going to be content, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have the best content possible for us to move this technology beyond the gimmick.
No audio. Okay, we're back. What were you saying, Raoul?
I was just saying that content is king here, right? So if you have the right content, the technology will follow.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about broadcast, talked about AR and VR in post-production. Where are some of the markets that are the non-traditional broadcast or feature films or documentaries?
Emerging markets,
yeah, the emerging markets.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing architects wanting to visualize their buildings in real time. You know, walk down the street where the new building may well go and get buy-in from their investors. And they want to see that building in real time. They want to see it look real. We're seeing a lot of enterprise or corporate keynote talks, speeches. We're seeing a lot of theme park potential. It's huge. You know, it's everywhere.
You know, other examples would be one big one that I've seen a lot of interest in is virtual showrooms, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a really expensive set of products, you don't want to carry your entire gamut of products in the showroom. But being able to allow the buyer to fully customize and visualize that, you know, car is a good example, right? You go to a showroom, usually if you're able to see the car you like, you're going to buy it, right? And so being able to create that emotional connect with the buyer, virtual reality is playing a big part in that, right? Being able to customize, visualize, and then say, okay, I love it, I'm going to buy it. Another area that virtual reality and eventually augmented reality is going to become big is actually engineering.
Okay.
Basic engineering and manufacturing companies, where as they're developing products, including Dell as an example, as we're developing our own products, having virtual reality and augmented reality be a part of the workflow of design, where you can iterate through your design much faster. We like to call it a cave in a cube. So every engineer has a headset. They're able to go create the design that they're creating, visualize it, tune it, not have to wait for a mock-up, not have to wait for the build to happen, and then iterate. So that also helps us from a schedule, budget, etc. standpoint. Right?
And augmented reality training. So we've got customers in the manufacturing industry who want to use augmented reality for their training. You know, it's a great way to train rather than a standard manual.
Yeah, but you brought up something, for example, you talked about cars, Raoul, and you talked about architects. if we've got our, estate agent, real estate agent,
Right.
that would be a brilliant way, but how are they going to get the tools at the cost
Good question.
that's going to make it worthwhile?
Yeah.
You know,
What's going to happen as far as the tools for
right
that market?
now,
Yeah.
this is a tool that you can view virtual reality content in.
Okay.
Maybe not exceptional content, but if you're doing a virtual tour, you can pop on your Google Cardboard or whatever headset of choice and put this on and view do a virtual tour of whatever house or building you're trying to walk through. So I think it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
The
That's
experience
you-
might not be the same, but it's going to be everywhere.
But that's viewing the final product. How are you going to create it for those markets that aren't your traditional big broadcasters or big feature
Yeah, I
films?
think we're seeing a lot of new content. I think actually what we're seeing is the typical visual effects companies are now starting to, broaden their horizons and embrace these new markets. So those content providers that typically would do very high-end visual effects for movies are now looking at VR and AR.
Yeah, we have a visual effects company that is a customer of ours that diversified, to your point, from developing movies and VFX for movies to actually creating VR content for a ride in a entertainment park, in a theme park, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
they're diversifying. They are the ones that are creating this content for use by a variety of industries.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have the content to provide the headsets and VR, AR, we don't. There's no use in the technology. So there's a huge. There's been an issue there right now, but it will soon come.
There's lots of VR and AR at the show, as we've said. What's actually missing? Where are the challenges to make AR and VR as we'd like it to be on the technology front?
There's a few challenges. I mean, this is still early stages, right? Starting with, you have to have the best content. We're working through it as an industry.
Yeah.
But being able to have the headset and physiologically have the headset on your head for more than 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, right? If you truly want to be immersed in a movie and you want to watch a movie, a typical movie is about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Being able to have that headset on for 2 hours, we have to solve that problem. Untethered.
Right.
Right now, a lot of the headsets are tethered. You can't walk around with your virtual reality
like I am
desktop,
here with
right?
the various cables.
I've seen examples of people having big virtual reality laptop backpacks with a tethered headset on your head, right? That's Gen 1. We have to solve that. It has to become untethered. So
That's a
lots
question
of problems.
Time, right? Question
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
It's not really an if. I think it's a when.
Right. And Raoul mentioned some of the products from Dell. Very briefly, Nick, what have you got on the show?
Well, we're showing a couple of foundations to augmented reality, which one is what we call relighting. So if we want to make our CG look photorealistic, it doesn't matter what engine we use. We have to capture the light in real time. We have to use that light and its surroundings to light the objects. Otherwise, we're never going to get that suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
And the other issue with augmented reality or virtual graphics, as is termed in broadcast, it's always in front or behind. There's no depth understanding. There's no spatial understanding. So that's what we're showing.
I want to go on forever with this because I'm learning a lot from you guys. But we've got to take a break, and after the break, I'll be welcoming back some more guests to continue the debate on virtual and augmented reality. I'd like to say thank you to Nick Hatch and to Raoul Tiku. Stay with us, and we'll see you in 5.
This is Val Pinchbeck, producer-director at WTOG CW44 in Tampa, Florida. You're watching NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. Here's your host, Janet West.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to 2 guests because we're having a great discussion on AR and VR. I'm on a learning curve. All this stuff's new to me. So got some very interesting information before the break, and we're going to learn even more now. I want to introduce my 2 guests. Gerhard Lang, to my right here, who is Chief Engineering Officer at VizRT, and Chris Babotis, a fellow Montrealer. Hey, for Canadians, who is CTO and owner of Metal. Now, Gerhard joined VizRT in 2000, and he's head of R&D in Austria. He's worked in the area of numerical methods applied to tunneling and mine safety, stereo programmetry. I don't know what half this stuff is, Gerhard, but I'm sure you do. Traffic analysis, hey, we're always interested in that. And all creating a large volume of data that we need to visualize in an understandable way. Now, Chris is the founding partner and creative director of Metal in Montreal. I'd love to know how you came up with that name. It's a creative boutique, it's a production studio, as well as a 3D plugin developer for Adobe After Effects. Now, Chris is the developer behind 3D NAE, Freeform, Freeform Pro, Shapeshifter, and Skybox Studio. Metal software products are born from real workflow production conditions. Now, Chris is the architect behind the Metal plugins inspired by over 20 years design and 3D projects, primarily for agencies. And Chris has been in advertising, communications, film, production manager. Gee, you've got an amazing bio there. Right, I'd like to start by asking you, Gerhard, what is VizRT doing to make AR and VR easy for the journalist?
Well, I mean, we've always been in the area of live production, and we used virtual reality as a storytelling tool for the journalists, you know, from the start of the company. And AR, VR is becoming a very interesting area for us, and every video content does need some graphics to go along with it, you know, to explain better and to provide statistics or useful information to the viewer.
And it's expanding. We've got loads of AR and VR at the show here, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So what is VizRT? You've got virtual set and AR tools. Do you work on a template-based system?
Yes, we are. And what makes us you know, easy to use is that we are creating graphics templates, and they get filled out by the journalists before they are being played out in real time. Now, our platform is really very transparent. So it doesn't matter whether you're producing for SD, HD, 4K, or now for VR, you're going to reuse the same templates over and over again. And we make sure that it blends seamlessly into your environment.
Okay. VizRT, I've got somebody singing in my ear. I don't know what's happening here. VizRT provides live production streams in all major IP formats for multi-platform and VOD production, as well as standard HD 4K SDI. Are all formats being used in VR and AR at the moment?
No. I mean, if you're talking about pure VR, as you see it here at the show, then of course that requires a headset.
Yeah.
And I mean, the transport is 4K most of the time. So it depends on which vendor you go to, right, for the camera and for the stitching. And we can superimpose directly over an HD SDI stream, or we can superimpose over an IP stream.
Okay. Right. Chris, I read somewhere that you openly say you like a challenge, particularly if it relates to technology. So what do you find are the key challenges in AR and VR? Starting with AR.
Oh, wow. The biggest challenge that I've seen right now, at least in our space, is that there's a lot of people that are very comfortable with acquisition, meaning they'll have either the GoPro setup or any other camera setup, and they're comfortable acquiring the data. They'll take it to the point where they're stitching, but where they hit a wall, at least about 9 months ago, is adding graphics, because they come really from acquisition, right? They're not really that well versed in editing or post effects, right? So we've seen that part of the market make their way to our products, and we've sort of made it very easy for them to understand and work in products like Adobe After Effects and Premiere Pro. On the other side, being the veterans of VFX, the great editors out there, again, to them it's foreign. They're looking at this whole equirectangular piece of footage that's stitched and presented to them, and they don't quite know how to deal with it. So I think the strength in what we put to the market is just facilitating it and bringing it into a space and a language that they understand. So all your skills, all your talents that you have in Premiere Pro and After Effects, you can easily repurpose into Cinematic 360 VR production.
Okay.
So this has been the biggest challenge. I think understanding and knowing how to deal with it and not seeing it as you're hitting a wall.
Okay.
Instead, it's the beginning of a tremendous opportunity, right? To be able to tell the story way better.
Yeah, we need a bit something different, don't
Yeah,
we?
absolutely, absolutely.
So, have we got all the tools necessary, Gerhard, for AR and VR? Obviously, a lot's being shown at the show here at NAB, but, you know, have we got everything we need, or?
That's hard to say. I mean, we're rigged for it, I would say, but there's still a lot that needs to be developed going forward. AR and VR is very different in the production workflow. I mean, we're currently focusing on VR mainly. Okay. I think we've got a pretty compelling tool set there already, which can easily be adapted to what kind of video gets transported over to us. Mm-hmm. On the AR side, you know, this is happening more on the consumer side of the story, which is where we're not very present. So there are a lot of game engines out there which can do great stuff on that, and we leave that to them.
Okay, we're going to talk about all the different markets a little bit later on, but let's stay with broadcast for the moment. Is AR or VR going to be the next platform for broadcast? Obviously, we've had some virtual studios with weather and with news, but for how we're seeing some of the applications now, is it going to be mainly AR or VR, and is there going to be a cost implication for broadcasters?
Do you want to field it? Go ahead.
I mean, VR will be easier to be consumed by you know, the end user. And it fits into the production workflow much better than AR. You know, and it's also a matter of having a desert or undesert headset available to you. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, I would think people would not have something like an Oculus Rift to watch a live production or live event. So it's more like a Gear VR and similar that they're using, and for that you need to have a complete signal being streamed to them.
Okay, Chris?
We have a couple of customers, both on a very high level and maybe more of an entry level. Not entry. That's the wrong word. So Allsight CNN is one of our customers, and 7 months ago we met with them in New York, and they were sort of sitting on a fence about the whole thing. But we're seeing a lot more momentum moving that way. Cinematic VR is an easier entry point for them, right? It's skill sets they've already got that they're repurposing and bringing into this space. Tools like Adobe Premiere, for example, is well known to them. It's blazingly fast at this point. It's dealing with 4K very, very well. Our tools are all real time as well. So you see it fits that end of the spectrum. Then we have another customer, which is on the journalist side as well, which is a company called Riot in Los Angeles. And they adopted our tools very, very early on. But again, it's primarily from a cinematic VR angle, right? AR and eventually, I guess, MR or ER, extended reality or mixed reality, we'll see what we call it in the future,
Okay,
will definitely.
What is ER then?
Well, extended reality or mixed reality, I mean, there's no nomenclature just yet for it, right? Okay. Everybody's inventing it as they're going along, but it's the idea of that you're going to take acquired footage, mix it with AR techniques, and extend the experience that much more. Now, what is that HMD going to look like? What's that head-mounted display going to look like? To be determined, but I think it will be HoloLens plus, basically, right?
Okay, so from the tool requirement, is there more required in the post-production or not? As you mentioned, there's a lot of tools already available, or is it in the production end, actually creating the images?
I'm sorry, Janet, I can't hear you too.
Okay.
Me neither.
Where are the challenges? You've mentioned, Chris, that post-production, they're going to be familiar with a lot of the, like, you know, Adobe, whatever. Yes. The tools that they're currently using for conventional television, they are familiar with them.
Yes.
Is there a challenge to deal with AR, VR in the post, or is there more of a challenge in actually producing good images? So in the capture of the images.
I think the real challenge, really, I mean, technicalities aside, technical challenges aside, the real challenge is to understand and respect the medium and produce and create for the medium.
Yeah.
So I've seen examples of immersive experiences where there's unbelievable amounts of money thrown at it, and yet the experience leaves you flat. And then you see very low budget things that have actually written for the medium, and you'll forgive everything. It's unbelievable. Stitching that's not quite right, editing that's not quite there, but the story is so compelling. You become extremely, even for an old veteran like myself, who sees every little pixel, you just say, well, that's fine. You know, this story is what's drawn me in, basically. So I think that's the real challenge.
But we've had that with cinema. We can get a top cinematographer to shoot with DV cam or something really old. We can give a student a 35mm with all the lenses or 65mm. And you'd watch the cinematographer. It's what you do with the tools, isn't it? And I think the creativity is important. What I'd like to do now is let's look at some of the new emerging markets. And I think it's quite interesting, you know, whether it's architecture, real estate, whatever. Tell us a little bit about where you see some of those emerging markets.
Well, I'm pretty much along the line with what the former guest from Dell was telling. I mean, there is a huge number of use cases out there where this technology could be utilized immediately and brings great benefits. And you mentioned a few, you know, architecture, manufacturing, education. All of them are really ready for that technology to be introduced.
But if it's going to be used in education, isn't that isolating a student as opposed to having what's really essential, a sort of two-way discussion with teachers or professors?
Well, it depends on how you use it. I mean, if it's used to bring a student to a location where he couldn't go, then it's definitely an add-on. I wouldn't use it for isolating the students. I mean, if you use it, as said, to bring them to a place where it would be for them almost impossible for cost reasons or for safety reasons or for size reasons. You know, you can immerse them in a buddy as well if you want to.
So it would be another tool in the education process as opposed to...
absolutely.
Education's now all going to be VR at home.
Yeah, no. I wasn't thinking about that. I was really thinking about extending the possibilities for the student to understand certain situations, scenarios, locations.
Chris, where do you see
I agree.
the
I think it's
markets?
I think it's just another tool for education, right? It's one of many, like multimedia. Before it was the teacher standing there and boring everybody to death. Now they've made it more stimulating, right? So that's interesting. I mean, in media and entertainment, there's. I'll bore you because you can find that anywhere. But some of the more interesting things that I've seen and with people that I've met and talked to, one chap approached me, and it wasn't exclusive to this person. I've heard this come about many times. I think we need to connect all these people. So one of the things I found interesting is using AR or VR, more VR right now because it's a little more accessible, for chronic pain to help do away with or like alleviate chronic pain.
That's fascinating. But how does that
distraction.
work? As a distraction?
As a distraction, as opposed to staying on pharmaceuticals constantly. You know, what if you dose with some pharmaceutical, but then take the patient off for a little while, distract them for a little while. I mean, this dependency on the pharmaceuticals has to be broken, I think, at one point. So that was interesting. I found that very, very interesting.
I did see an example whereby somebody with Alzheimer's who's stuck in a home, for example, and can't go out. They put a treadmill, have the augmented reality, and suddenly that person is getting recollections, and therefore it's stimulating the brain. I think that's absolutely fascinating because as we're living longer, more and more people. Other examples of new markets.
I mean, we're pretty much bound to our market, and that's what we're looking at the moment. Because there is a huge interest from both news and sports to use that media. And we're pretty busy in actually covering that at the moment. So,
what about the tourist market? Is that going to kill people going on vacation because they can simply look?
I think it'll have the reverse effect, Janet. I think that, well, done right, it's like any form of advertising, right? Done right, it'll become enticing and have you want to visit that place that much more, right? So I don't see it killing the travel market. I see it enhancing it.
But you've brought up an interesting point, advertising. How do you see that changing with VR and AR?
Tremendously. We already have customers doing work for like Bridgestone and Hyundai. A lot of the car companies are deep into this.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get you closer to the experience, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, anything more immersive, anything that you can spend, that the advertiser can get the consumer to spend more time with the brand, they're there. They're there so fast that makes your head spin. Excuse the pun, but
Yeah.
no, I think I see it as another great tool. But I mean, like anything else, it can be dealt with responsibly or irresponsibly, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, Chris and Gerhard too, about all the different companies working together. Who are the main players in AR and VR?
Well, there's definitely Oculus, there's definitely HTC. I see Microsoft as being huge. There's a couple that are, I'm trying to be nice, but there's a couple that are still vaporware in my opinion. They're an interesting notion. There's some great ideas out there, but we'd love to see it come to be. So yeah, on the hardware side, there's definitely that. I think computer companies will definitely benefit tremendously. Intel, AMD, NVIDIA they're putting in great efforts to accommodate this because the production is so demanding, and we're just at 4K right now. 8K is right around the corner. 16K is not that far away, right?
I think we're going to go that far.
Oh, we have to. I mean, to achieve the realism that you need, you have to go to that resolution in the end. I mean, Samsung is also definitely somebody you need to reckon. And there is a bunch of good companies out there who can do live stitching at the moment.
Yeah.
Like Video Stitch, you got NextVR, you got Vogue, you got also Nokia, for example. So, it's a bunch of very professional players out there who drive that market on the VR side, and on the AR side, you already mentioned the main players anyway.
But you mentioned earlier that you can use your mobile phone. Surely you don't need 8K for that.
So I didn't hear that.
I said you said that you can look at VR on your mobile phone.
Absolutely, yeah.
But surely you don't need 8K for your mobile phone. So where is the 8K market going to be in VR?
Tethered at first, tethered being connected to your computer. So the Rift and HTC are a tethered solution. Samsung Gear VR, Cardboard are mobile solutions, but then there's a middle market that's starting to emerge already, which is the self-powered HMD. You're not dependent on that mobile device anymore.
Right.
So I've seen AMD make some headway in that space already. There's great interest in that middle market, so to speak. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of players there too, I think.
Okay. So you've both got your own companies, but what are you excited about seeing here at the show in NAB?
Well, I mean, the VR pavilion over there is excellent, and you know, we're making good connections and going forward. We need partnerships there. We have our own solutions. We don't go into video stitching, for example, where we can use their outputs straight into our compositor. And I said, like, we're very excited about VR. We think it's if done right, it's a great storytelling tool for both news and for sports. And we did a few productions already. There's much more to come. And we're excited to see the results and really see the results evolve to a quality standard that we would be happy with.
Okay.
If I had the time to travel a bit or go around the booths a bit, I'd love to see much more on the audio side. I think audio is infinitely more important than immersive or 360 than in flat, than conventional. So I think it helps tell that story even better, and I think it's going to do a lot more heavy lifting than it did in the past in regular cinema. So that's what I would be spending my time looking at. Audio, new audio solutions, authoring, headsets that can accommodate 360 audio. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's very important.
Okay. Anything else that you guys would like to add on the AR and VR markets?
No, I'm good.
Janet, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that.
Apologize, guys, we've been having a few audio problems here. I said, is there anything else you'd like to add, Chris, regarding AR and VR?
No, I think really for us, at least I'll speak for myself. I really think it's about the story. It's not about the technology. The technology has to be transparent and just help the creator tell the story better. That's what we're trying to do as best as we can within our parameters. The faster you can produce it, the more iterations you can get out there, the more you can fine-tune your story and tell it that much better. So if we can all keep focused on that, storytelling, that would be great.
Yeah, no, definitely. For companies, whether it's broadcasters or small production houses or even large production houses, for those wanting to get into VR if they've not done it before, is there adequate training available? Where do they go to learn how to do it properly? Because that's essential, and we talked earlier, it's what you do with the tools rather than the tools themselves. So have you any comment to make on the training?
Yes,
or
more
the education?
From what I'm seeing, I've been lucky enough to have traveled quite a bit over the past 6 months, at least in the United States. And what I try very hard to do for every little trip that I make, I try to see at least 1 or 2 schools. I try to set up sessions with local organizations. For example, in Los Angeles, there's something called VRLA that's starting to take off very, very well. So what we've done with them is we issue free licenses for a day or 2 and allow people to get their hands, right on the product, getting them. So yeah, it used to be a big hole in the market, but a lot of people are taking that initiative. So there's a lot of free training available now. It's starting to get a lot better, Janet. A lot better.
You're going to have to develop VR training.
There you
VR.
go. There you go.
Do you have any comments on the way people can get up to speed with the new techniques, Gerhard?
Well, I don't think there is a training on the shooting itself available per se, because I mean the production companies are doing it in a specialized way, and there's not a lot out there. And it's like graphics porting to VR is as easy as there has been from H2 to 4K, for example. So there is no real training required. Maybe a little bit on how to position it right so it's not distracting, but not an enormous amount.
Okay, in the previous session we had it's going to take 10 years to happen. Nick Hatch said it was going to take a bit less. I want a prediction from you guys. When is this going to be mainstream in broadcasters?
More than just an experiment, you mean that it becomes a reality?
Yes.
I would go more along the line with 10 years.
Okay.
Between 8 and 10 years.
Okay. And Chris?
In our small world, Janet, what I'm seeing, I see it shorter than that. Everybody's starting to refer
It must be that seat, because that's where Nick Hatch was sitting earlier.
It's shorter than that, Janet. The curves we are seeing, the adoption rate we are seeing is phenomenal. So I would see it much shorter than that. And within the production community, it's already, cinema is already being termed old school and old hat. So, and we're what, less than a year in already? So again, in our small microcosm, 5 years less, maybe, yeah.
So do you think the other markets, meaning the non-broadcast markets, will take up AR, VR quicker?
I think so. I think so. I mean, our whole position was to democratize right from the get-go. So, from a pricing standpoint, from trying to make it as transparent as possible, we try to empower the indie first and foremost. And the idea was the better the content to feed the medium, the more chances the medium has of surviving and growing. So, as we all know, I mean, we love huge companies like CNN and Disney, but they're difficult to move, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the indie is very nimble, very, very agile. They can move very, very quickly. So chances are that you'll feed the medium that much faster. Okay. So another reason to go back to your original question is that we're seeing that content coming in a lot faster than we thought.
Okay. We have had a fascinating conversation on AR and VR. It's been brilliant. I've learned an awful lot. I hope you watching at home or watching here in the NAB Show live studio have learned a lot too. I want to thank all my guests, particularly Chris Bobotis here and Gerhard Lang. And I want to thank you for watching. And remember, join me at 3 o'clock this afternoon, because I've got a couple of really good guests who are going to talk about what do customers actually want as opposed to what the industry is trying to go. It's goodbye from me, Janet Weston. Stay safe in Vegas.